Hi everybody, welcome to episode 4 of the Unparalleled podcast. Today I get to chat to Mike Astbury of Mondrem Group. Mike's created an amazing business and he's going to share the things he does on a daily basis and the things that he does with the team and the courageous decisions he's made in his business to be a real people, human business, and the benefits that that's given him, and he's going to share all about his career. But in terms of that pursuit of happiness, this is going to be a really, really interesting conversation, and I can't wait to get into it with Mike. So hang around. You're going to really enjoy this episode, and here we go.
The world has become a bit of a space where it's normal to find yourself in a toxic space where you're expected to do all kinds of things that are, in some respects, unreasonable.
Within that, people play a part, and to get the best out of people, you've got to allow them to be free. I think freedom's a huge part of people getting the best out of themselves. You know,
If you just keep winning and you don't understand why, you're just lucky. And that's a very dangerous way to run a business, just relying on good fortune all the time. The job you get somebody to do or you employ somebody to do is going to be the same in a year's time, and that they should stick to their job description is frankly bonkers, because the business is changing all the time. It's growing, it's having different needs, and therefore everybody's growing in their own roles. I feel like we all have a contribution to make to society, whether it's during our working lives or afterwards. So, I'm shaped and inspired by my own parents and lots of other people who do great things into retirement. But they also enjoy life.
I think you're a really special person. I think that to have created the environment you've created and the success that you've had, but almost the bravery and courage that that took to generate that, and just be, to take that and say, this is how we're going to be, and have the confidence to do that. I think is really special. Hi everybody, welcome to the next episode of Unparalleled. Really excited today to have Mike Astbury with me from Mondrem. We've just been chatting about where the name comes from, so we'll share that with you shortly. But me and Mike today are going to talk all things people. We both have a passion for people and how you accelerate and grow businesses on the back of having great people in your business, and how you create great people as well. So we're really looking forward to that, Mike. Mike, welcome to Unparalleled. Just share for our listeners and our viewers. Just introduce yourself, please, and just let us know a little bit about Mike Astbury and Mondrem.
So, hi Steve, thanks very much for the opportunity. It's great to be here. So I'm Mike Astbury. The company is Mondrem Group, and it's two little social enterprises. Mondrem, our mission is to unlock planning capacity. So it's a very niche area of business, and we see an opportunity to help the English planning applications process and planning system to deliver the homes that we need and to deliver the developments that are good for economic development in all kinds of locations. And we found a way of doing that really well. So we focus on that. And the other social enterprise is called Nurture. Both of them are community interest companies. And Nurture has a mission to create places of happiness. And they're really community spaces, green community spaces that are managed and cared for by the communities that benefit from them. So I came to this business, set it up 10 years ago. So we both companies are sharing a 10th anniversary this year. So
fantastic.
I had been a co-director of a management consultancy for about 12 years before that, and decided to break out on my own at that point, and that's been a great thing. previous to that, there were a few different things. I'd been a director of a fire and rescue service in Cheshire. I had worked as a contract site manager for process outsourcing company, a company that had, was a management buyout from Cadbury, actually. So the office was on the Bourneville factory site, which was a very sweet-smelling place to go to work. And prior to that, I'd had a little business, and then which was stunningly unsuccessful, and that was a great learning experience. And also, I'd worked for the first 13 years of my career in local government, and I'd been a service head in the revenues and benefits space for a couple of London local authorities. So that's all the stuff like council tax and business rates and what were then housing benefits and rent allowances. They've moved on a little bit in what they are now, but that's some of my history.
Let's just talk about the happiness part. The community business about creating happiness in green spaces. You know, where did the heartbeat for that come from?
So the idea about places of happiness comes from the word Mondrem, and Mondrem is named after an area of forest law or forest that covered half of Cheshire, the west half of Cheshire. With the help of a language academic from Keele, we unpicked what Mondrem actually meant. And the Mon bit really refers to mankind or humanity. It means literally man, but I think in the broader sense rather than the gender. And then the Drem has a reference to dreaming. So it's a sort of place that people would dream of, or a place of happiness. And Nurture Kit came out of, it was a spin out of Mondrem. When we set up Mondrem, it was a limited company. I'd never heard of a community interest company, which is what both companies are. And so we decided we'd like to have a community interest project when we converted it to a community interest company. And that was Nurture. And then it turned into a business of its own right, because it looked like there was an opportunity for it to have a life of its own. We can talk about that later, but it's at the moment, entirely student-led business. And what we've just done is provide a space for students to do brilliant things, and perhaps that's worth talking about later.
Yeah. Well, the happiness bit, it resonates really as well, because a lot of what we've done at Semper is all about creating happiness and knowing that a happy team, a happy culture, a happy client base, you know, just creates success really, and it's sort of, you know, that perpetual motion of success really. So, you know, let's get sort of into the people piece, but I know you've got a lot of views on how you look after people and how the environment you create. So, you know, where does happiness sit with you when in the sort of more commercial entity that you run?
Yeah. Well, I think we spend an awful lot of time at work. Some of us spend a huge amount of time at work. And most of us go through a journey where we learn to spend the right amount of time at work rather than too much. But it's still a lot. And the world has become a bit of a space where it's normal to find yourself in a toxic space where you're expected to do all kinds of things that are, in some respects, unreasonable and made worse sometimes by it being quite a difficult employment market. And some people feel, well, you're lucky to have the job. You do what I need you to do. And both of our businesses are very strongly purpose-led. And I don't think there's a really strong personal reason why I work and my colleagues work to improve the public sector. It's all about my late sister's experience of health and social care, which is both brilliant on the one hand and pretty terrible on the other, sometimes with the same people, not intentionally, but you know, things that were harmful. And it seems nonsensical that we would do our best work, be the most innovative and imaginative, driven, effective people, if we're feeling constantly under stress, if we feel unheard, if we feel undervalued, if we feel ignored, if we feel overworked, if we feel like it's an imposition to ask for permission to respond to the normal things of life, like our children are unwell, or that we are unwell, or that we're having a bad day, or something like that. So it just seems really common sense for commercial reasons, as well as for human reasons, to create spaces where people can thrive. And that's our little motto, shaping places where people thrive. And so that's really where it comes from. Happiness is part of that. It's great. We can do all of this with a serious hat on, but actually, isn't it good to have fun at work? Why should work not be a space where we can have fun?
And be surrounded by happy people.
Yeah.
It creates a positive environment that creates that. For me, it's about positive momentum. So every decision you make, small decisions that they are with people, creates that little bit more bit of happiness, which creates this kind of momentum that actually, that somebody having that one bad day doesn't derail the whole team and different things. And actually, this kind of momentum carries on. It's the same in business. You create business positive momentum as well. Yeah. But so I think absolutely right, and I completely concur that having that overarching purpose that's communicated well, but actually understanding that within that, people play a part, and to get the best out of people, you've got to allow them to be free. I think freedom's a huge part of people getting the best out of themselves. Not just being tied down to sort of one role and not being able to think. You see often that people have a list of duties and they just fulfil those duties and carry on. It's actually having the freedom to pick their head up, talk openly, share ideas, and that cultivates then that kind of more that culture that then is looking to grow, looking to change, looking to adapt, and then that doesn't become a negative; it becomes a positive.
Absolutely. I'm a very strong believer in the notion of giving responsibility, not task. So that what you do is you trust in the idea that people have imagination, have passion, have drive, have energy, and want to do things within that purpose-led context. And you free yourself from the idea that only you can have the best ideas, that only good things come from the founder or the leader. So creating a space where people are given responsibility, ownership, as close to feeling like the entrepreneur or the founder or the owner of the business as it's humanly possible to create. And then making the rest of the team their support mechanism. Now, it's being demanding, but it's also giving explicit permission to fail. I think failing trying to do the right thing is really important. I think, I have a very strong view about that, because I have never met a human who hasn't messed up. And I put myself firmly in that category. So a requirement not to fail is a requirement not to be human, and that just seems utterly unreasonable to me. And what tends to happen is that far fewer mistakes are made when you take away that pressure. And the worst mistakes happen when people feel unable to talk about them in a timely way. Mistakes are easiest to fix when they are, they're announced or spoken about the minute that it looks like that they're either going to happen or they just have happened. The biggest disasters come when people stick for a long time trying to hide something, fearful of the consequences of saying that they've made a mistake, and some much worse mistake or disaster comes as a result of it. So
mistakes also, they create opportunities, don't they, to get better. If
you're not making mistakes when you're trying to innovate and grow and do new things, you need to ask yourself, are we trying hard enough? Because I mentioned before a little business that failed. It just fell flat on its nose. I didn't know what I was doing. We go and explore business opportunities, and several of them have fallen flat on their face. I think mistakes or failure is just not very far around the corner. We work in a very dynamic environment where the legal and political environment changes all the time. And if we carry on doing the same thing, we're almost certain to fail. So we have to try something new. I don't know any business owners who have a magic crystal ball that gives them the guaranteed route to find a new thing that is definitely going to work. You've got to try and go with the things that by your best assessment and the best assessment of the talented people that you bring around you is going to be. But there's no guarantee, and you've got to go knowing that it might not be, might not work. So
I was thinking, I mean, when I played a bit of rugby in my time, we always used to have the concept that when we won a game, we didn't really learn anything, and all the learning came when you lost. And when you didn't quite get it right, that's when the learning came. What can we take from this?
I think that's, that in all kinds of, I agree strongly with that. I think in all kinds of improvement approaches, the audit or the review of what went wrong is a great learning experience. But I also think that it's really important to learn why things went right. Because I think, and this happens in sport, whether it's rugby or football or anything else, if you just keep winning and you don't understand why, you're just lucky. And that's a very dangerous way to run a business, just relying on good fortune all the time. Understanding why you're successful, I think, is as important as understanding why you weren't successful. Because if you don't understand what it was that led to that success, it's almost impossible to replicate it. And sustained success means you need to know how to replicate it. So I think it's a bit of both.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, I think it was. I'm sure I remember listening to Clive Woodward talk about he used to have the 8 o'clock meeting after the win rather than after the loss. So if they lost, they would go out and have the 8 p.m. beers rather than the 8 a.m. meeting. And if they won, they'd have the 8 o'clock meeting. And like you say, just try and get some scale on that defeat, on that win, and take that forward. Just listening to you talk about how you create structure within that freedom within the business and passing that responsibility onto the team. Over the time, how's that evolved your role within the business? Because obviously, in a growing business, the role of the leader changes. But obviously, if you can instill that responsibility in the team, that obviously changes your role. And how have you handled that change? And how have you grown, I guess, in that 10 years?
Well, there's 157 different questions. So over the next 15 hours, we can talk about that. But it's a really good point. I think that I'm at a really interesting point, and there's a great advantage to it. I am planning to retire in the next few years. I'm at that stage of, I've been working for 42 years. I've never been more energetic. I've never had a better job. I've never enjoyed it more. But this giving responsibility, not task thing is about every appointment I make. I say when we bring anybody into the business, I say I'm looking for whatever role it is, someone who, in the right circumstances, could be the leader or chief executive of this business at some stage in the future. Not that they must be, but that the opportunity is given and that somebody has the raw talent or capability or opportunity or potential, I think is the word I was grasping for there, potential to do that. And to create space for them to grow with the business. So I'll answer this in bits. The first bit really is that in a modest size and growing business, the idea that the job you get somebody to do or you employ somebody to do is going to be the same in a year's time, and that they should stick to their job description is frankly bonkers, because the business is changing all the time. It's growing, it's having different needs, and therefore everybody's growing in their own roles. So it could change every week. So every week we catch up, we have something called a support and progress meeting. We do it in a very disciplined way. And the first question is, how are you? And then, how are you really? And how is that? And then the second is, how well did we do this week, giving you the opportunity to do things you love? How well did we do this week to giving you opportunities to do things you're really good at? Because those are the things that give us personal satisfaction.
And do you do that on a one-to-one?
One-to-one, every week, everyone, without fail. And the next thing is, how was last week, and all the stuff we're talking about, what went well, what didn't. What's next week, and how can we help? Always, how can we help? And then, how can we make next week better than this week? And every week, is the job still the right shape? Or is there something else that you would like to do that makes your world more exciting, more interesting? And then we just look to see if that overlaps with the need of the business. And we do this when we take on placement students and all kinds of things. It's not, I want one of those. It's, let's have a chat. Is there something that you do that overlaps significantly with what we do? And then, if so, how can we make it overlap 100%? So that if it's 100% overlap, it's the best imaginable job, therefore I'll get the best imaginable outcome from you, and you'll be your best self. So those are the kind of things.
How do you deal with where somebody's wish or desire is to do something that they determine is creative for them, but it isn't in line with the strategic direction of the business? Because obviously that's can create a little bit of conflict, can't it?
Yeah, well, that's not something that happens often.
Okay.
But there's always, and we're veering off the first 157 questions last last time, but I'll come back to that growth thing and how I've changed. But I think if you're really innovating in a business, and I think it's important that that's a lot of what we do, introducing something entirely new into the situation is a good way of prompting ideas that you might not have before. This is done in a structured way with things like Lego Serious Play, when you make these, put those 5 bits of play bricks together, and other bricks are available, and say how that describes the current geopolitical environment. And you're just told to use some random input to explain what you're doing. Now, in the context of your question about, well, what happens if they want to do something that doesn't fit with the strategic thing? The first question is, well, okay, it may not appear to fit, but could we look at that wish in the context of what we're trying to do? Is there some learning? Is there some carry across? Is there some, like throwing that odd-shaped brick into and saying, how does that explain the story of Sempar's growth from you and Eludia into the international global empire that you now are? And sometimes it's saying, no, we can't do that. Yeah. And there is something I say often in the business, and that is relevant to this, and it is, on the first day that you don't want to be in this business, you should go. Not because I want to be unkind to people, but because if we are not the right place for somebody, we're doing them a disservice. And there's a few occasions where people have joined us and they've learnt something, and either 2 things happen if somebody leaves. One is, it just isn't the right place. So that business about giving responsibility, not task, might be wrong. People might want to say, I'd like to have a list of things I need to do, and that's what gives me joy. I'd like to rattle through that list every day, and I'm really good at it, and then I'd like to go home knowing that that's it, and come back tomorrow. So this is a terrible place to work, because you give all that kind of less structured thing. And that's happened a couple of times, and we've helped people to go and work then in customer service sectors where somebody's coming at you all the time. You do a brilliant job responding, and they're much, much better in that environment than here. And then in another example, somebody who joined us said, I want to do a master's degree. I finished my degree, I come along to the business, I want to do a master's degree. And I said, fine, we will overlay what works, what doesn't work. And then eventually, because we work a lot in planning, they said, I'd like to do a town planning master's degree. And I thought, right, okay, well, that isn't something that, as you've said, what happens if it doesn't fit with the strategic direction? And we mentioned this to a couple of customers who then fell over themselves really quickly to offer fully funded master's degrees and part-time, a day off a week and a job. And how can we say no to that? And another example very recently is we have a fabulous young person join us about 4 months ago. And honestly, he's blown our socks off, and he loves working with us. But a university has just offered him a fully funded, non-competing, fully expensed PhD opportunity in an area of research that he absolutely loves. Well, we'd be fools to say no to that. And then there are as many stories of people who just love this environment of support and responsibility where they're given the chance to do something themselves. I even get the listeners will guess that like you, we're based here on the campus at Keele, and we work a lot with students and undergraduates, which is why I'm talking about younger people. But I even get the parents of the students and graduates who work with us, messaging me on LinkedIn or contacting me to say thank you for this experience that we're doing. So it's not just, to your question.
What's really interesting is when you talked about those incidents where somebody, either it wasn't the right fit and there was a better move for them, you use the word we. So it really gives you the idea that there's a real togetherness. That decision was made collectively. That was you both want the best for that person, rather than there's countless employers that would not make them aware of those opportunities, or try to not have the fear of losing somebody out of their business and almost act differently.
Well, it's a difficult leadership challenge, isn't it? Because in one example, you've just invested 4 months' worth of training to give somebody the capability to deliver value in the future. Yeah. And you're not going to get any of that back. But what you also got is value in the course of that training and development. And what you also got is learning and perspective from a new individual. What you've also got is a great story to tell in a podcast. And what you also, you get in there is a young person at the start of their career who's experienced working in an environment where they really wanted to come to work, where, we're not perfect. I'm not perfect. Of course we're not. There'll be days when we were, a pain in the what's it and irritating, but we try not to be. And we have conversations when we are. But who's better able to spot the toxic work environment and make a positive decision not to go and work there. And that will make a lifetime's difference to their well-being and happiness, coming back to your point. But to quickly go to the 157 questions in a quick answer, if I can remember what they were. But I know that the success of my business has nothing to do with me in the long term. 3 or 4, it's 3 and a bit years away from when I plan to move away entirely from the business. The decisions I make now are not about what I'm doing, they're about building a team. Yeah. And imagine that you were completely freed from the idea of having to find stuff that was just about your future or fitting with you. I'm able to distance myself and say this business is a joyful thing that's doing good things in the world, it's creating a nice place to work, and it's making a positive difference in the world. And we might come on to talking about the sectors we work in and why we work in them. But its sustainability is going to be all to do with who comes into the business and how we recruit and how we make it a place that people want to do, and how people and we recruit on people who share this kind of passion and idea about doing good and working in the right way. So my growth is about learning to not just back off but disappear altogether. And it's quite liberating. And so the joy comes not from, in my case, financial success. These are social enterprises. There's no exit with a sack full of cash. There's no selling it on to somebody else and hoping that everybody's okay. It's creating something that's owned by those people, that's driven by those people, that's going to be sustained by those people. So being able to gradually plan to step back from everything a bit at a time. So we at the beginning of the year, we appointed a practice manager. We've just appointed a managing director who's going to join us next week, which leaves me in the business development and sales and other space, which means that when I go, there's a more traditional business development
there's a job
role,
spec that meets
a job
that
spec
gap.
that somebody can come and fill in. It means there's an overlap between. So it's all about sustaining a business that has nothing at all to do with you, and it is about sustaining it. It's not just creating value at the point of exit. which is quite a different thing. And there's different forms of entrepreneurial behaviour. There's different forms of entrepreneurs. Ours is a not-for-profit. It's there. It's not about a shareholding that I can make money out of. It's about creating a good thing in the world that exists beyond my influence.
So how important is openness and transparency in your culture and business? Because it feels like the conversation you've just had with me, you've already had with your team to a certain degree. They're all fully aware of that change and are all probably on board and working. It hasn't created any anxiety or fear within the team. You've managed to appease that and get everybody onto that forward-looking motion. So to do that, you've got to have a real level of transparency and openness in that team environment.
It's a little thing called trust. And trust is an interesting thing. It's a bit like falling in love. It's going to end badly. Being blunt, one of you is going to die or leave. And that's how a trusting relationship is going to end. And some people protect themselves from that by not falling in love. Or in the business sense, not trusting. I take the opposite view. You get hurt. I have been hurt. I have hurt other people. Not, there's no malice or difficulty, but that's the situation. But wow, what joy, what capacity, what, to follow the love analogy, what do you miss out on if you, for anybody who's ever fallen in love? What do you miss out on in business? Where you normalise the conversations about, the founder leaving or being really short of cash one month or seeing a extremely challenging business environment or a great opportunity, being able to share that and use all of the intellect, passion, drive, energy of the team, not just hold that to yourself, and to be open enough to come vulnerable to work in the morning and say, I'm feeling a bit of overwhelm this morning. I'm just going to, I may just need a little bit of help. I'm going to back off. Because it's just a different kind of environment. It's a space where people will give. It's not the space for everybody. But if you're recruiting right and you're normalising these kind of behaviours, you're not making a drama about something or you're not withholding something, if people feel like you're hiding something, then that trust starts to break down, and the trust is an important part of, the power, the commercial success comes from that powerful, trusting relationship. So, and as a leader, if you're not prepared to do the things that you encourage of other people, then don't bother. I want somebody, if they're really feeling unwell in the morning, to be able to say, I'm feeling unwell, and not come. And to know that that's not a problem, that we will say, well, okay, so how can we help? So what have you got to do today? You've got to take so-and-so to the doctors, or somebody's doing that, blah, blah, blah. Okay, how can we help? How can we work around that? Okay, who can help? And that meeting we have a meeting every morning at Daily Brief. And there are a number of structured questions. So this is not just, this is a nice idea. It's actually institutionalizing these things. It's, okay, first question, how are you? No, how are you? Like the weekly conversation. And then say, what are you up to today? How can we help? Is there any risk that you see? And is there anything that the rest of us need to know? Those 5 questions in order, structured. And if the how can we help is to say, okay, right, I'm struggling with this, or I've just messed up with that, or I'm not sure I can do this, then imagine how much more comfortable you feel if you know you can, when you're struggling, you can talk about it and people will share that and it's given. And, people will say to me, well, people really in my family, some close people say to me, well, in my organisation that trust would be abused. We have an unlimited leave policy. Take as much as you like. In some places that would be abused. But it isn't, because we have an absolutely clear focus about what our purpose is. We have an absolutely clear focus about the broad direction in which we're travelling. Not exactly how it's done. That's for the clever folk who work in the business to work out. But once it's agreed, it's put into a detailed project plan, and we manage in detailed project and operational performance in change leadership ways. So it's all disciplined and organised. It's not sort of fluffy tree hugging exercise, but it all comes together in that way when you can trust people to get on with it. And if they do take time off because they need it, they give back. I don't ask it, I don't expect it, it just happens. They give back far more.
The fact, I mean, obviously there's probably a number of reasons why that holiday policy is not abused, but do you think one of the main reasons is that you actually create opportunity on a daily basis for people to help each other? And actually, if they take more leave, then they're removing the opportunity to help each other. You know, they're very conscious that they come to they have an intervention on a daily, weekly basis where they have that opportunity to help. And actually, by taking them out of the organisation, they're going to take them away from that. There's almost like a belonging.
Yeah, I think there is a belonging sense. There's a sense of loyalty and camaraderie and connection and human connection. You know, people engage with each other on a human level. That's a big part of what I think about the people stuff, the human connection and shared understanding, which we might talk about. But I think the point of that's really important is that it's an organised, disciplined process, and those opportunities are not hoped for. They're engineered every day, every morning, and every week with the support and progress, and then and other intervals in other ways. Not in any kind of manipulative way. We have an idea about what is a good and healthy amount of time to have off in a year, and we monitor and make sure that people take enough and they don't take nothing. Because the wrong thing for that would be to some obligation not to take any leave. But also, it's the idea that we've got a common purpose and we're all doing it because we like doing that, and we're not worried on a Sunday evening about coming to work on a Monday, and that we'll look after each other when we need it, and that's all normalised. There's no drama about it.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I listened to a podcast with Mel Robbins on, and she talks about that from a relationship perspective, which is that often in a relationship you have energy exchanges, and people come to that relationship with some days 100% full of energy, some days 0% full of energies, and it's recognising, but it's also being truthful and saying to the partner, I've got 20% today, and then that partner says, it's okay, I've got 80, so we're great, you know, and that's almost like what you're creating there with that daily meeting, which is to say, look guys, I'm struggling today, and the team going, it's okay, we've got you, we'll support you, because you've supported us in the past, and it's that, you know, reciprocal relationship, really. So, congratulations for creating that within the business, because I feel like, you know, the business must be far better off because you have that.
Well, it feels like a great place to work for me. Part of this is true for me as well. Yeah. I'd like to feel the ability to do that, and I do. It's one of the, I think it is the best place that I've had to work. It's been part of realising that that's okay, and that, so there are a number of aspects to that. Number one, for a lot of my career, I said I've been working for 42 years, for, 30-something years of those, the commonly occurring theme was that those kind of things were weak, naive, risky, and I'm going to say often with too much masculine energy in the room, and finding the confidence to accept that inclination about a way of working is none of those things, and is actually a good way to run a business and be comfortable in that, and find a space in which, obviously for some of my career, if those two things were true, I was in a space where it wasn't right fit for me. I couldn't be me-shaped, and it's only really in my 50s and now in my early 60s that I've felt this ability to be a me-shaped human in the world, and give everybody else the permission to be whoever they are, to come as you are. we are a human being. We are human beings. That's what we share. It's our humanity. And there's a lot in the world, you implied this right at the beginning, where we're focused far too much on those points on which we're different. And that becomes alienating and dehumanizing. And much of the ills of the world come from that, kind of dehumanizing instinct or behavior or expediency for political and other reasons. And what we share is our humanity. And to the point you were just making, sometimes we're energized, sometimes we're exhausted, sometimes we're brilliant, sometimes we mess up. Sometimes we're passionate about something, sometimes we couldn't care less about something. All of those things are the conditions of being a human being on any one day or another, and we should, have permission to bring all of that, whatever it is, any day. It doesn't take away any personal responsibility to, to be the best that you can be. It's not a kind of free pass to freeload. That those two things are not that. It would be wrong to conflate those two things. They're very different. And it's not some kind of happy, ineffective space. It's our commercial edge. Yeah. It's why the most brilliant people want to come and work for us. It's why we're able to deliver really excellent things for our customers some of the time. We are a service provider, therefore we screw up from time to time. We work very hard not to do that, but we are known not for those things, from day to day. Occasionally we get things wrong. We are known for delivering real outcomes, not just doing what we said we were going to do and rattling through the actions. We're interested in the difference we make at the end, and we judge ourselves by the difference we make, not whether or not we've worked the days or hours and done the things we said we would do.
There's a common misconception, isn't there, that businesses that talk like this are often like fluffy and not have a commercial edge, and they're very much there. They're in that. Yes, they're out there and they're trying to do something different, but they're often not to be perceived to be not commercially strong or not profitable, or it's more about, well, it's a nice place to work, but is it really going anywhere? Yeah. And but clearly, from just listening to you, there's a real commercial edge, and I'd like to understand how you kind of perceive success within the business commercially, but also how you kind of measure that, as along with all of everything else that you try and build in that culture.
Well, that's a really interesting challenge, because we think about growth all the time. We plan for growth, but we don't measure that growth in revenue or profit. We measure that growth in the impact that we have. And there are a number of measures of that impact. One of them is the things that we've been talking about. So we are here based on this fabulous campus with surrounded by all these great people. So one of those impact is the high value in education and early postgraduate employment and placement opportunities that we give. And there have been more than 60 students who have come through our small business in the last 5 years who have had between a week and 4.5 years worth of this experience. And most of them have had a really great experience. And so our plans for that impact is to be able to do this at a larger scale. Yeah. And we had an interesting conversation with the Vice-Chancellor Kevin here at the university last week about how we might help the university create these, access some of this and do it at a bigger scale. So that's one thing. And that's an object that sits independently of the two purposes of the business. One is to unlock planning capacity, and the other is creating places of happiness. This impact-based purpose around creating high value in education and early post-education employment and placement opportunities is a separate measure of success alongside that. And what that means is that we could host people to deliver that kind of experience for other people's businesses, not just for our own. So that's one area of impact. Then the other thing is in this narrow sector of planning that we work in, we work council by council to often help struggling services where people feel stressed and professionally overlooked, and where the pace and responsiveness of the service is not what developers and planning agents would like, and where the trust between the local authority members and between developers and the service is not good, and turn it to be the opposite, to award-winning versions of themselves, where the stress goes and the professional satisfaction comes. And there are some simple things that we do to do that. But doing that council by council will take a very long time. Yeah. We have got a model of working that our successful clients have found exceptionally useful, so we'd like to change the way that planning is done. Mm-hmm. So there's this impact in terms of client by client, but there's also an impact in terms of changing the way that planning is done in England, in Scotland, in Wales, and in other places where the planning system works similarly, perhaps in Australia and in New Zealand and one or two others. So we have that vision and ambition to do those kind of things, and starting with, so some of our measured impact is the conversations and lobbying that we have with people in government and in the professional institutions. We've not been as good as we need to be with that, but we're really turning up that dial, and I mentioned that we're bringing on people to run the business, gives me more chance to do that. And then the other part of it is how many of these places of happiness can we create and set up. So we've got a great one on the campus here at Keele. We're working with the YMCA in Stoke at the moment to create, to turn a part of the land around the YMCA into a wildflower meadow and other things, and involving people who live there and people who work there and students here at Keele to do that. But there are other opportunities. We're having open conversations with setting up a similar way of having student-led projects and workshops and creating these places of happiness at Sheffield University. We did a student consulting project with 2 groups of students there earlier in the month. We have now deepening connections with the university, we hope. More conversations this week. And fascinatingly, there's a Japanese exchange student here at Keele who came to interview for us for a job. And I'm going to start very, very slightly to influence the people. She came into this room, actually, and there were 4 of us because we were teaching people to interview. Okay. And I realised very quickly that if English is not your first language and you come into this great big imposing room and there are 4 people looking at you, it's probably more of a stressful. Intimidating, yeah. And if you're asking somebody to talk in their second language, then that's probably a disadvantage. So after a couple of minutes, I could see she was struggling. So I stopped and I said, I hope you don't mind, and I must say that I don't speak Japanese, but would you answer the next question in Japanese? And so she agreed to do that, and for a few minutes she spoke with passion and energy and very demonstrably, lots of body language that showed me that she had this passion. And as we carried on the interview afterwards, her English got remarkably better. And that evening I happened to speak to the head of modern languages here, who explained that's a real phenomenon when you're under stress, there's that language barrier, so we'd done that. Now in the end she wasn't the successful candidate for that thing, but that so that I can put these 2 bits of the story together in a way that makes sense. Number 1, that is us trying to seek to understand and put ourselves in somebody else's position and think of them as a human, not our perspective, to try and help make things better, and that was a good example of it. But although she wasn't successful in the interview, we did say, well, she mentioned that she'd be really interested in taking the idea of nurture to her home university in Japan. I won't say which one it is because it might identify her from here. But so we're having a conversation in the next few days about how we can set up that thing. So that's a tiny bit of impact, maybe in internationally. None of that's to do with money, and that's me talking for 5 minutes about income,
the
and none of it's
milestones
about
that
money.
you
It's
talked
all
about
growth.
are non-monetary, aren't they?
Yeah.
I mean, obviously with the view that you've got 3.5 years left in that position, has that sort of brought any sort of conciseness to what's left to achieve? Because you've clearly already done a lot and created a lot within in that business, but what's left?
Yeah. So I think I'm ambitious for the business. I'm an impatient entrepreneur, and it's a shame really, because I've found the best job I ever had towards the end of my working career. I don't feel like I'm in the mood to retire. So I have this plan, but I've just taken on a trusteeship of a charity, and I've got some ideas. I've just set up a little semi-retirement business on the side to do one or two other things that in a similar space outside of planning. I've just become a grandfather for the first time this month, and I have a fabulous family and lots of interests that I'd like to pursue. So something's going to have to give, but it does exactly what you said. It sharpens the focus. Any kind of life event which puts a firm deadline on something, be it a tragic event or a planned event like retirement, sharpens focus. Becoming 60, last year, there was something about that anniversary that was different to every other one.
Yeah.
They said, okay. So I'm in my 60s now. That must mean there's not quite as long. If I'm thinking about a career in 10 years' time, which is sometimes what you're going to do in 10 years' time, it's probably retired, isn't it, Mike? So you're probably going to have to do something about this. So it was helpful and liberating. And so I think that the nurture business has an opportunity to operate, whether as a franchise or whether just a networked ecosystem of like-minded humans on a much bigger scale.
Yeah.
And I've been blown away by what's possible when you don't say exactly what needs to be done, but you provide the opportunity for, in our case, students and very recent graduates, but until this week, entirely students, to create this business and do things and wow people. I think that I set up a software business last year. I exited that in 2024. I exited that at the end of last year. It's going to make a mark in the world. It's doing things. It's a great partner for Mondrem. It's not my area of interest. The social enterprises are absolutely mine. I think there might be other businesses that come out of this. I'm excited to see what our new managing director brings. I'm excited to see what all the students and employees that we've got that I've never met yet might bring, because each one of them has brought some different perspective. I think really I'm very open to what happens next, but impatient and ambitious. And so I think that the best thing I can do is to create this space where brilliant people can be brilliant and play my part in doing that. It's not only I who am doing that. And then give encouragement, find opportunity, normalise all the things we're talking about now, and see where it goes, so I can walk away happy that people have got somewhere to work.
Sounds like the retirement might be just as busy as you are at the moment, but I guess what for you will be the difference when you cross that line?
Yeah. Well, in many ways, very little, because I'm fortunate enough to, be happy to live modestly. I don't make a fortune. I don't need to make a fortune. I'm going to have, an income from retirement that is fine to meet that modest living style. That's who I am. So I'm already not doing this for the money, and that's been the case for a long time. And so into retirement, I think for those of us who can, for those of us who've got the ability and good health, and this is where, as you get older, that's the wealth is health thing is important. And I think separately in the business, I know like yours, encouraging everybody to look after their health so that they have some if they can. We don't know what's around the corner, but do the best you can to give yourself an opportunity for healthy retirement in later life. I think if we can do that, then there is a sort of I do feel there is a responsibility to do that. It's a personal choice, but I'm greatly inspired by my parents in this matter. My parents are 90 years old, and my father has just been talking to his colleagues in recently in the Cancer Research Committee that he's been a member of and working with for over 40 years, about stepping back and not taking the lead for organising events and running stalls at events and things like that, and stepping back from an officer role of those things, because at 90 he feels like probably he doesn't want to do that. Now, not everybody's going to have the good fortune to have health into their 80s and 90s, but both my parents have absolutely felt that they both retired early, not for the sake of retirement, but as carers of my late sister, who'd been very ill for almost all of her life. But they have done other things and feel like we all have a contribution to make to society, whether it's during our working lives or afterwards. So, I'm shaped and inspired by my own parents and lots of other people who do great things into retirement. But they also enjoy life. They also take time to have fun. They take time to have their hobbies, and they know how lucky they are with their health. And I keep caveating this because I know there's nothing, we can't take these things for granted. But I think it is possible to continue to contribute to society and to slow down and enjoy retirement at the same time. And I think that because I have a very great example ahead of me.
Do you think that it's the loss of your late sister, do you think that so a lot of what you are doing feels like legacy and having leaving a footprint, having an impact? Do you think the loss of your late sister perhaps harnesses that a lot more and means that you want to do that, you're almost doing that for the both of you rather than?
Really honestly, I haven't fully understood the connections between those two things. Katie became ill when she was 11 years old, and she had a very serious and invasive brain tumour that doctor said would end her life within 3 months. And the process of diagnosis had been very difficult. The medics and clinicians who my parents took Katie to, overlooked that it could be a serious condition, and with good motivation. Their family doctor was a family friend. Judged that it was something else, and they didn't believe that, and they sought a second opinion. And the day after the second opinion, she was having a very serious operation down the road here in Harts Hill, in the hospital. And she lived for 35 years. Wow. Quite against expectation. There's all kinds of things that happened that, the amount of treatment she had to do with the tragedy that befell her paediatrician, and the treatment went on longer than it should have been, and a number of other things. She was a highly energetic, uncomplaining, inspirational woman, much of whose life she wasn't communicative and couldn't do very much for herself, and at the end it was, I'm talking very personally here, but the difference between life and death for Katie was almost imperceptible. But she's a great inspiration to me. I don't know, as a child at the time doing that, and in a world of convention where My parents protected us from those kind of things. It's I haven't fully formed why, but it's certainly an inspiration to me, and I certainly feel like Katie set a great example by just getting on with life in the most awful of circumstances, and that there's an opportunity for me to do some of this, taking that inspiration. I think I'm the kind of person who is inclined towards doing these kind of things, but I think Katie's experience is also very much adding to that, and it seems, we love people and they're gone, and you want to do something that honours legacy, as you say. So I've made it that as well.
Well, Mike, I think that gives us a really opportune time. I think it's been really interesting to listen to the depth of perhaps the smaller conversations we've had over the last few months, and I think you're a really special person. I think that to have created the environment you've created and the success that you've had, but almost the bravery and courage that that took to generate that, and just be to take that and say, this is how we're going to be, and have the confidence to do that, I think is really special. And I hope the next 3.5 years are a joy, and they continue to be a joy, and I'm sure your retirement will be a joy as well. So really thank you for joining us on Unparalleled. I've really enjoyed listening and talking to you about people, culture and environment. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve. It's been a pleasure.
Cheers.